good men, and they sending all of the bad boys that ain't gonna never amount to nothing to learn from bad men how to hurry up and destroy themselves so they can get that shit over with.
Get them out the way, so to speak.
Yeah. So Christ the Great Silver Tree say, can you explain the Great Wall of China and why was it built? I actually went over that in one of my lives, and I was talking about, it might have been with Young Elder, but ENLIL opened a portal to a mirror dimension to get a being that we called the Great Dragon Bitch. And when she came with hordes, and they didn't look like us. The Great Wall was to have a, it's just like the movie The Great Wall with Tom Cruise, only they didn't look like the ones in the movie. They looked like, she had wings. She was about 9 feet tall, and she was a biped lizard humanoid thing. She the one who was executed in 2018 living under the Vatican. Inanna came back to personally execute her. I wanted to do it, but shit. Anyway, the Great Wall was built to fight them and harness them into a ravine that we could fight them off. When we started killing them, they started being born looking like melanated humans. The only problem was that they couldn't and still can't breed with us if they wanted them. They can't have children with us. They can only have babies with each other. And they chromosomes is backwards to ours. And they females look male and they males look female. That's why he done it, because he wanted to usurp the throne. And if you even look at the word usurp, it means to go under something. And if you look under the Vatican, it's a whole, what they call throne room to so-called the dragon bitch, the great archon. That's what they talking about. When they talk about the archons, they talking about the ones he opened the portal to allow in. When you look in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he called them the Dark Brothers that he got rid of once, but somebody opened the portal and let him back in. And that he would come back in a distant age in order to get rid of them. Well, this is a distant age, and they getting the fuck out of here. And I don't care where they go, but they can't stay here.
So they can't stay here, huh?
No.
So I was reading some of the comments. Can you explain the difference between the Adamites and the Atumites?
Phonetics. The Adama is where the Adamites come from. And they talk about those who was organic from the earth. Atum was the father of Adam, which is a whole species of what we call Hindus. That's a whole nother bloodline on earth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we right now everybody's waiting on Baba to come home so that Pops could actually get us back in tune with the things that we need to be actually doing, which a lot of us like such as brothers like yourself and Rod Hayes, the fourth elder, Brother Love, my mentor, are already doing. What do you want to tell the people that out there that's wondering or confused? What do you think that we can expect, if you can elaborate on that, when the master teacher actually get back?
We already talked about all of the ones that's frauds is going to be put on the spot for their fraud. All of the ones that's thieves is going to be put on the spot for their theft. Look, there's a lot of people that's not people that look like people. Everything that look human ain't human.
Oh, I already know.
A lot of these things that look like us ain't us. They infiltrated at every level of our societies. We know who they all is now, but it took us a long time to know who they are, what they did. Right? We didn't used to take on human form. That's why the human bones only go back so far in the fossil record. We used to incarnate and disincarnate, going up and down the ascension ladder, and we would come to Earth to experience a 3D polarized reality. And then we would ascend back up, and then we would come back down. There was no such thing as death, right? We didn't know what death was. Death is a construct created in order to instill fear in us. All it is they collapsed the fourth dimension into the third dimension when we incarnated to get them off the planet to trap us on the planet. So it was all science. And the science was used in conjunction with conjure in order to trap us in Kingu, the sleep state, or the Kali Yuga, which was artificially induced by one of ENLIL's sons, who they call Zuin or Humbaba, who stole the scrolls of destiny, who manifested as Alexander, who went into India to get the scroll of governments to rule the earth.
Right, I remember that because one of the things when I was younger, I used to ask my mother about why was that one of my attributes, and she always referred me to the story of them sending the Nordica to go to Zuin to fight the war to get the Tablet of Destinies back and bring it back to the Anunnaki. And the Nordica was considered to be the warrior and the brave one that actually performed attacks or went on the assignment.
Mm-hmm. So we was all dispatched to different parts of the planet. The elders. And when the elders was dispatched to different parts of the planet, everybody had to find a piece of the puzzle to put this shit back together at the close of the age. And here we are putting this puzzle together.
Right. Reliving it. So another question in here is explain vibration and frequency and the difference and its importance. I think you already went over the importance, but I guess this is a definition question. The definition of frequency and the definition of vibration and how we should interpret those words.
Okay, so frequency is predicated upon points of peaked vibration or sound. It's like a oscillation. Every peak, the level of peaks determines the frequency, which when you trace the word frequency back is how frequent or often, or it's a consistent rate of oscillation. That's the frequency. The vibration is the thing which has the frequency. And the vibration is the movement of the energy. So you measuring the energy by its frequency, and then by knowing the frequency, you know what the vibration is, or the rate in which this energy comes into 3D reality. It's like measuring brain waves. They all got a different frequency, and they all on a different, so it's like a radio. You got a whole bunch of radio stations, and you can change the dial to a different frequency in order to get a different channel. Every frequency has a different channel, and there's a different broadcast coming on every channel. So when we're talking about vibrations and frequencies, we're talking about sound. It got to be a sound at its root. And the sound is a audio rendition of light. So if you notice certain lasers, when they turn them on, they hiss. Right? That's the sound. That's where they coming in at. On that hiss is telling you where the sound is coming from in frequency and point of origin.
Okay, that's correct. So how does that relate to resonant energy?
Okay, so now go back to the radio. You're not going to get the same channels in Chicago that you pick up in Miami. The resonant frequency is the frequency from a specific area, right? It can only, the sound wave can only rise from this area. It becomes a resonant frequency, or a resident frequency is a better way to look at it.
Why is that?
Because it's only in a certain, it only has a certain reach. And it's just like when you're in a residence, you only live in a certain place.
Right.
So you got an address. When you have a resonant frequency, the resonant is the residence of the frequency, tell you where it comes from. It's like the address.
So some people was reaching out to me. I guess they've been reading certain books that was dealing with the electron, and I'm pretty dope on the comprehension about the electron. But what they were saying was that they consider the electron God.
They can consider whatever they want to consider as God. That's their option as a free will, in a free will universe. But the electron is only part of an atom. You can't have a positive charge without a negative charge and vice versa. But you can have a neutral charge with both of them.
That is correct. So I was speaking with a sister, and I was trying to give her the understanding similar to you as far as vibration and frequency, and that the phenomena that humans call sound is more accurately described as vibration or movement. And since there is vibration and movement on all scales, from the microcosmic and subatomic to the macroscopic and universal, that there is indeed sound on all scales as well. Just as there is visible light spectrum of electron movement that we can see, there is also audible sound spectrum of movement of vibrations that we can hear. And I was explaining that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to look at when you get to the atom, you take the electron and you got a string of light that's curled up in the ball. They call that the string theory in science.
Right. I'm familiarized with that.
Okay, now, if you stretch the string of light out, the less condensed it is, the different frequency it's going to put out. It's going to change it. The Higgs boson is light literally tied into a knot, which causes it to create the appearance of density.
Right.
Right. So now we're talking God particles, Higgs boson. So what we perceiving is holographically generated, and any part of the hologram is a representation of the whole.
Right. It's like divided into individual parts, but they all contain everything in all the parts.
And that's why they say as above, so below, as within, so without. When I talk about ENLIL, Enki, I'm talking about frequencies in reality. I'm talking about vibrations, but I got to put it in the term that we know about.
Right, because I was explaining that to a sister that, and I think she pretty much got heated when I was telling her that basically the way that we were educated in the tab was not the same way that they were educated just by strictly reading the scrolls. And I think she was pretty offended, but I didn't mean it in that way. All I was trying to tell her was that there is a lot of what's called esoteric knowledge inside of the protocols in the Wabble, right? And when I say esoteric knowledge, I'm talking about anthropomorphism and anthropopathism as a means to give a clear, concise, and comprehensive understanding of complex subject matter, right? It's not literal, it's symbolic, right? These energies are literal, but the actual person that you're talking about may not be literal. And when I tell you she was pissed off, she was pissed off.
See, but that's because the exoteric and the esoteric is mirror images of each other. And if you are a diligent student, the esoteric will appear as like a leak in the exoteric. So when we study in the higher sciences, we study in at its source dark matter.
Absolutely.
But everything that we tell you in science is a way to understand the dark matter and how it becomes solidified as 3D condensation in the hologram in order to form something that we can experience three-dimensionally.
Right. So back to the electron, because it just a thought came to my mind. So when I was actually having the conversation with the one, well, actually it was two, it was a brother and a sister. I was trying to describe to them that the words electric and electricity both derive from the Greek word electron, and that the word electron is composed of two Greek words, elect, meaning to choose or pick out, which is also related to, the word elite, selected or chosen, and that the word tron is an instrumentive suffix used with a verb to designate something that performs some action. So in this case, something that elects or chooses for example, the particle that elects to move, and that the etymological root of all of the words, electric, electricity, electron, elect, elite, lecture, and intellect, is lexis, as in lexicon, and more specifically, the Greek word or Latin word logos, the spoken word in the Greek philosophy that was designed from the creative utterance word or tone of what we call patah, called hu in ancient Kemetic philosophy. And they thought that that was just, you know, a little bit more complex. You got a more simplistic way of explaining it.
That sounded pretty simplified form to me.
That's what I thought. Like, it's just like, yo, but I think that sometimes when people are reading, they're reading with intent to not have to go outside of that to be able to validate or, you know, do some research about it themselves. They just want to believe in whatever the book actually said. And to me, from my perspective, that's definitely kind of lazy.
Well, not necessarily, because, like, for instance, I can use the Bible to teach a Christian out of Christianity, and they won't really be as a man-controlled drone as they are under the doctrine of the church.
Right.
The same book can have a different effect when taught at a different angle.
That's so, because you're going to give different interpretation as you explain and define the words.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come with a Bible and a Strong's Concordance, and every time I tell them something, I'm going to show them what I'm talking about. But the church not going to do that. The church is going to say, and the Lord fed the multitude with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread.
Yeah. And that's not our way of teaching. That's definitely not our way.
And my first thing I tell them is, the first thing you got to understand about the 2 fishes, that's representation of Pisces.
Absolutely.
And then when I tell you about 5 loaves of bread, that's 5D consciousness. 5D consciousness in the Aquarian, in the Piscean age, would have put you above water. But you stuck at 32 minus, which means that you froze. Right. I'm just trying to get you to 33 and you can break free.
Right. But see, that goes back to the esoteric teachings. What you're doing is, when we teach like that, we are actually translating the symbolisms into the reality of what it's actually saying.
Right. Because when you're looking at 12 disciples in the Christ, you're looking at the old civil priest's order. But you don't know that because you don't know nothing about the civil priest. That's the average Joe. The civil priest consisted of 12 matriarchs and a grand matriarch. And that's where your Catholic Church got its form and function from. They just put the Pope up there as a drag queen.
You call him a drag queen?
he is. I can't even. What I got to do to show you? Everybody see him wearing a dress every day. Yeah. They just didn't know that was the dress code for the civil priestess, and they put the colors in reverse. See, he's supposed to. If he was a woman, he'd be dressed in black instead of white, because he would be representing of the noon. And the nuns, who is they saying is the representative of the noon, would be in white and not black, because they would be representative of the light that came forth from the dark mother.
Right.
But they switched everything in reverse, and then they turned it upside down, so you can't figure it out. That's our old orders. All of that shit is ancient. They just usurped it because we was familiar with it. Genetic memory recognized the Christ story, but we being taught it wrong, so we don't know what it means.
Absolutely. Well, it's time for us to get out of here, man. I enjoyed you. I'm gonna give a shout out to the young elder. I should be back on his channel doing the WAPIC class on Wednesdays. Shout out to the brother Love, all of the sisters that's actually participating in the WAPIC classes. I commend y'all for your willpower, dedication, and devotion. Keep up with the good work. Shout out to the brother Rod Hayes for giving us that good information all over again, because they was asking for you, man. They was definitely asking.
Well, I'm here. So
all right. I done dropped the brother Cash App in the link, not the link, but the comment section if y'all want to show him some love. and we still trying to build this school. We need to get on the ball so that we can be ready by the time the master teacher get here. Anything you got else to say, bro, before we get out of here?
Just watch what happened. That's all I can tell y'all at this point. We passed trying to tell y'all we got to watch it from here.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a sad song being sung for a lot of people. They just not listening. And like
there's
I told
more
you,
people listening than we know. It's just that the reality of what's happening versus their expectations doesn't match. So they don't know what to do and they froze.
I can see that. I could definitely see that. But nonetheless, we still need everybody, from my perspective, we need everybody active. We need to be together. We all need to be on one.
I think the big wake up is going to be when we see the elders make their appearance to the public.
Yeah, why is that?
A lot of them ain't going to move until they have that shock and awe of the disclosure and shake their consciousness. Some of them that didn't know what to do going to automatically remember at that point. It's a monumental event. It's a life-altering exposure. When you realize that your people been oppressed by some motherfuckers that look like you, that use pale faces to conceal their dirty hands, that's going to be enough wake-up call for a motherfucker to be like, what the fuck? Because the worst thing I discovered in the self-discovery journey is the white man ain't white. That nigga look like us, but he ain't us. That hurt my feelings more than anything else. How can a motherfucker that look like us do this to us, but they not like us? They just look that way. They infiltrated all our organizations looking like us, talking down on whitey who they put in power.
And another question, I'm glad you mentioned that because I've explained this for the past probably 20-something years, but I want you to give your perspective on it. 6 ether and 3 ether. How would you describe 6 ether?
Can't nobody describe it better than Bubba. 6 ether is ghost. It's the death of 9 ether. It's the total inverse. So if you look at the dominant recessive gene chart, 6 ether is on one end of the spectrum and 9 ether is on the entirely other end of the spectrum. But neither one of them in and of themselves is good or bad. But until you put an intention with them, that's what makes the difference.
Gotcha. All right, we getting ready to get out of here, man. I'll probably hit you up for part 3. I'm about to answer some of these phone calls because they blowing my phone up right now. I want to hear what they got to say.